I made a jury summons envelope just to get in the frequency. So this is what I'm working on. I have also been reading The Secret, so plenty of you have read that, enjoyed that, or are going to read that, or have heard reference to. So I keep envisioning getting the letter, having a jury summons, even going online, marking, hey, I got the message, and then heading to court to see what case I will be reviewing, whether I'm the foreman or I'm just a regular juror, and what case it is. I've been thinking, why settle for an easy one? Why not a extremely exciting one? Hardly any cases go to jury. Too many plea deals are done, and I believe too many people are forced into those forced plea deals because they fear they have no option. And already the prosecution does case stacking, which stacks cases against the individual. So the individual fears that he will get, say, 9 felonies when maybe he was going to get a misdemeanor or 2, or perhaps 1 felony. And that's if worst case scenario. And there's a lot of gray area because sometimes you do things for the right reasons. And there's the difference between the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. The spirit of the law is this law is here to prevent these things, but the letter of the law is designed to entrap everyone, cast the widest net to entrap the widest amount of fish, and then the prosecution gets to determine who gets prosecuted more heavily and where their resources are focused. Unfortunately, that has happened way too much because the more laws that are passed like that, the more power the prosecution and the lawmakers have, because in any business transaction or paperwork deal, those who design the language of how it's written are in control, because certain languages and the timing can determine the results of that outcome. And you see this all the time in a service agreement or a contract, whether it's a door-to-door salesman or whether it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Those who negotiate the best are the ones writing it down. And then they present it. And then if you're very intelligent, you review it, and you can also have other people review it. So anything your eyes or mind missed, it can be fixed or it can be amended when brought up. So if you're writing it, make sure it is for you. Everything makes sense. Everything is thought through, premeditated. If you are reading it, read it. So if it's your job to write, do the best job you can writing. If it's your job to read, definitely go through it and read it. Now that that's over. When it comes to law, a lot of these laws are by definition illegal. They are unconstitutional. And even if you go to the Ninth Circuit or the Supreme Court, Marbury versus Madison states, forgive me if this isn't verbatim, this is just going off of what I have in the memory bank. Any law that is contrary to the supreme law of the Constitution is considered null and void, and you can act as if it does not exist. So this is to reaffirm the law of the land. So if it's unconstitutional, you can disregard it. And this is case law. This is Marbury versus Madison, I think 1803. Although you never want to be in a position where you have to battle that, you can have that in the back pocket, your little tool belt, your repertoire to draw from. There are other laws that protect you as the individual. For instance, there is, and I probably shouldn't quote if I don't have the exact quote, but there should be no issuance of a license or a permit for an already right or privilege. So if you can already do it without that, no one can force a fine or a permit or a license to do that same thing, which everyone already has. One thing that immediately comes to mind is the fish and wildlife, the game, fish, and wildlife people. Everyone used to fish. And now they're like, okay, well, you can only have so many fish. Oh, now that we have to do paperwork and we have to watch you guys, you have to pay this fee and we'll give you a license to fish. When it was our right. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness has always been ours. And they take that from us and say, no, you need to pay us to do this on with money that you've already paid taxes to earn or to receive through dividends or to receive through capital gains. So it gets more and more frustrating. You can also look at concealed weapons permits. So the Second Amendment, it doesn't say you can have guns. It says the government cannot forbid you from having weapons. I mean, it doesn't say that specifically. I think it's closer to, in order to maintain a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, which means they don't have the power to ban what weaponry you have. This really frustrates me when it comes to PGP encryption and other encryption, where if you want to make money and you go to get a patent on it, there's a secret government organization that says, nope, this is national security. You don't get to have this patent, or you don't get to sell this patent. And then they can either delay or they can deny, which affects your livelihood when you have created a better encryption system that they can't yet infiltrate. And if they do infiltrate it, they try to inject it with hidden back doors. I'm probably confusing a lot of people, but in simple terms, a backdoor in computer talk, I'm going to try to simplify this as much as I can because I'm not a computer whiz. A backdoor is a couple of lines of programming that allows someone else admin access, so administrative access, to the system to program it and to view all that goes on in that system. And it could be as simple as, if I type in a hidden phrase or password, passphrase, something in that like, then they can access everything in that system, whether it's encryption, whether it's a website, whether it's an app. It's very intelligent. And they don't just have one guy that's drinking Mountain Dew and, up all night in a hidden bunker with, stolen Wi-Fi from a public building. I mean, there are those people. But it's often a team, a conglomeration of people working on the firewalls. Who can access this? It's people working on access, who has access, not just limiting those to get into it, but also can the right people get into it when they need to get into it, and from what locations, usually IP address, but there's plenty of other routes to take that can be prevented by that firewall. And then you have systems working. You want the system to work, as if it doesn't work, nobody cares about logging on, unless, they're just going through practice trial runs and penetration testing. So they have government files, and I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe Edward Snowden released huge files on how information was stored, how it was kept, different security procedures that were in place. And it is my belief that he held back a lot of the information that he obtained. For good or bad, I will not discuss that right now. But it was very interesting how he went about it. Now, back to the jury duty stuff. I know there's a long tangent in the digital world. I'm really excited. I want a case that is so interesting, so worthy of my time. I feel like Sherlock Holmes dissecting it piece by piece, systematically going through each piece of evidence and determining its worth, and then compiling, is that happenstance? Like, there's a lot of things that would make us as individuals look extremely guilty if a crime were to be committed around us. Do you have duct tape in your car? Do you have a first aid kit? Do you have a 72-hour kit? All good things you should have in your car as a individual. You should be able to maintain yourself for 72 hours without external help. Okay, that's just crap hits the fan all the time. You should be prepared just in case. Now, these can be weaponized against you. Let me give some examples. If you've ever had a divorce, whether you're religious or non-religious, you have noticed people treat you different after that information has been declared or elicited in some cases, where the probability of you being the problem has increased in their mind. Because it takes two people to tango, so to speak. So maybe you were the problem, maybe they were the problem, but in my experience, it is a compilation of both. Pushed in certain circumstances, we all react differently based on our history. So, in similar instances, a lot of people, unbeknownst to them, or maybe subconsciously, very few people would this be conscious, they would behave the same, or dare I say, worse in those instances. So you have to look at the case by the circumstances that are around it. And attorneys don't always present the circumstances. They're like, oh, he shot this person 10 times. There's no reason to shoot someone 10 times. If you're in fear for your life, you're not fighting to score points. You are fighting to survive. I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but I believe we all have an innate desire to continue living. There are some suicidal people, self-deletion people, and they don't want to die once they've left the bridge. You know, once they jump, once they leap, once they decide to do an act, sometimes their mind changes. I've seen several videos on people's stories after the fact, you know, the survivors. This could be a police as well, where there was a person that was unarmed, but it was at night. The officer could not see their hands. And it is assumed that when rushed, that person had the intent to cause harm. Although there was no weapon or no threats, and it's going off of a case-by-case basis, sometimes that's the right decision, sometimes that is not the right decision. But those who live tell the story. So we also have to take it with a grain of salt. Anywho, I will leave this video, make it short, because this is my goal, trying to get on jury. I'm trying to be on that frequency for this month to determine whether or not it is possible. And perhaps next video we will see if I can go through how the jury is selected.